Everybody, and thank you for attending this afternoon. As all of you know, we start at 4 o'clock. We'll be done by 5:30. That's the way we've run our program. We start on time, we end on time. So thank you very much for attending. If you're not speaking, please put yourself on mute. We'd appreciate that. And when you do speak, I try to do this, but I got my wife doing some dog watching, so the puppy doesn't start barking on us when I start getting into this. And thank you very much, obviously, for your understanding and cooperation. We had to cancel our June meeting out of due respect to Camille Palmero. With our deepest sympathies, we sent to her and her family. Her mom passed away on that particular day. So Camille, you're in our hearts and our prayers, and I hope your family is obviously recovering from the loss of mom. We all had moms, and we all know how special they are, and we respect that. So I think we were very fortunate to cancel the meeting, not to have any problems with you being there. So we appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we did send the materials, the agenda, the minutes, and the treasurer's report to the delegates in advance of the meeting. Okay, we want you to have those things. So I need a motion to approve the minutes from May 25th. Any so motion? Take yourself off it. Who is it?
Rita.
Rita makes a motion. Second. Take yourself off of mute if you're going to second. Have we got a second on the motion on the minutes?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate it. Councilman Reed. Okay, and how about on the treasurer's report as well? We need a motion there. That was sent out as well in advance. We have a vast $61,000 in change on the bottom line with regards to the treasury. We had a nice donation from a family member here at IBIS who I've known for many years. Upon her passing of her husband, who was very supportive. Who's speaking? Okay, we need a motion on the treasurer's report. Please unmute yourself and we can get a motion going here.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we need a second. Got a second on the treasurer's report?
Second.
Okay, thanks, David. Appreciate it. So moved. Okay. I was just finishing. We received a nice $5,000 donation from the Dill family. Lee Dill passed away, but he was very supportive of our organization. He lived here at IBIS, and his wife wanted to do something in his name. So the Dill family has been recognized for their contribution to the NCNC to the tune of $5,000 to be used at our discretion in our treasury. So thank you to the Dill family. Okay, now today's agenda is pretty well similar to what we would have had in June. And we all know, because we're here in Florida, most of us are full-timers. We have, and I hate to use the word because we haven't been threatened, at least in the last year or two, with hurricanes, but we're going to go through hurricane preparedness and resiliency and recovery in terms of those particular topics. We've got the Palm Beach County, we've got Palm Beach Gardens, and we got West Palm Beach all going to present what they suggest to us we do. And I encourage you, if you haven't, I know a lot of the materials on our website, a lot of the materials on Palm Beach Gardens website and West Palm Beach website and the county. We need to distribute and to send this information out to our residents in the communities. We took a little poll here at IBIS. Over 50% of the people living here this summer have never been through a hurricane. So their natural thinking is, oh, we need batteries and flashlights and so forth. Oh, okay, well, how are you going to communicate to anybody if you have no electricity and you have no computer and you have no telephone and you have no TV? And they said, well, we'll call on the landline. Well, maybe the towers are all down. Maybe there's nothing that you could really get to. So how about transistor radios? Oh, didn't think about that little item. And if you have no electricity, by the way, how are you going to open up your canned goods if you need an electric can opener? Have you got a manual can opener? Gee, never thought about that. Well, you know what? So there are little bits of information, but we're going to leave it up to the county EOC people to give us some more advice. And then we had a change in the statute this year with regards to voting, and particularly absentee ballots and so forth. And Wendy, our supervisor of elections for Palm Beach County, is going to give us an update in that respect. So with that, let me acknowledge the elected officials. I hope I don't miss anybody. I was trying to get it off the registration list of those who clicked in. Palm Beach County Commissioner Maria Marino from District 1, Rochelle Litt who's the mayor of Palm Beach Gardens, Chelsea Reed, council member, Palm Beach Gardens, Ron Ferris, city manager, Palm Beach Gardens, Steve Stepp, deputy city manager, Marcy Tinsley, Palm Beach Gardens City Council member. Keith James, Mayor of West Palm Beach. Christy Fox, Commissioner of West Palm Beach. Joe Peduzzi, Commissioner of West Palm Beach. Ellen Baker, North Palm Beach County Improvement District Representative. And Wendy Satori Link, who's the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections. If I botch up this last name, I apologize in advance. Beth Machenbacher. She's from the Palm Beach County Tax Collector. Who's not paying their taxes here? Everybody paying their taxes? Okay. Or getting your licenses renewed. They have that functional responsibility. We've got some new players. Maybe they've been on the previous call, but one time, Robert Wax, Kyle Caparosa, Paula Furstein, and Alan Roman from Ballin Isle. So welcome to some of our new people that come in from one of our nice communities in the area. Okay, with that, we're not going to beat around the bush any longer. Everybody in the right meeting? This is not the bocce league get together. This is not the tennis group. This is not the Mahjong group, okay? We're going to get into some interesting topics. All right, so let's take off with Michael Jankowski, who's the Palm Beach County EOC representative today. So Michael, you got 15 minutes to kind of help us understand what the county would like us to do to prepare for these storms called hurricanes.
Oh, very good. Thank you very, very much for the invitation. Very happy to be here with you. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, very good. Okay. See my screen okay? Everything good?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. So again, my name is Michael Jankowski. I'm with the Palm Beach County Division of Emergency Management, and it is my pleasure to be here to speak with you folks on some hurricane preparedness. So one of the biggest things that we look at with hurricane response or any type of emergency response is what we call a whole community approach. What this means is we really believe that it takes a whole community to be resilient and recover and return to normalcy. And our community approach looks at our first responders, our firefighters, our paramedics, our EMTs, our police officers, as well as anybody that works as a first responder. We work with our local government, whether it's Palm Beach County Commissioner's Office or the City of West Palm Beach Gardens, any of the 38 municipalities. We also work with our businesses such as Home Depot, Lowe's, places that are going to give us our supplies before and after a hurricane would happen. Our private sector, such as the United Way, the American Red Cross, and our nonprofit organizations such as our schools who do most of our sheltering, as well as our religious organizations, because we truly believe that people are going to search for that higher power when something happens and they're looking for that kind of support. But the biggest one, of course, is our public, and that's you. Everybody helping is the best way to get back to normalcy. So what is a hurricane? Well, a hurricane, by definition, is a large rotating storm with high-speed winds that form over the warm waters in tropical areas. Of course, as we know, the hurricane season starts on June 1st and goes until November 30th. But the big thing to remember here is the tropical systems, they don't actually pay attention to the calendar. If you remember, even this year, middle of May, we had Tropical Storm Anna, and even a few years ago, a system actually formed in January. So these systems can form at any time of the year. What's the difference between a hurricane watch and a hurricane warning? Well, a hurricane watch announces that the sustained winds are possible within the specified area within the next 48 hours. A warning is stating that those sustained winds are expected within the next 36 hours. Biggest thing here to remember, though, is there is a big difference between the tropical watches and warnings and our everyday standard type of advisories that come out practically every day now since we're in the middle of summer, such as our thunderstorm watches and warnings. Those are usually a lot more imminent. This graphic here just kind of shows you the different categories of hurricanes and their associated wind speeds. It's important to note, though, here is when we talk about like a Category 1 or a Category 3 hurricane, we're actually referring to the wind speed. It has nothing to do with the amount of rain or flooding that might occur. It's just about the winds. And this will give you kind of an idea of the type of damage that you can sustain from those type of winds. But the biggest thing to remember about this, and this is a big thing that really kind of makes me cringe when I hear people say it, it does not have to be a hurricane in order to be dangerous. A lot of people say, it's just a tropical storm, I'm not going to worry. But if we remember in 2012, Tropical Storm Isaac went south of Florida through the straits, never even touched ground, but dumped almost 17 inches of rain in areas such as Loxahatchee. Even this past year, we had Tropical Storm Eta approached us in early November. We had a wet fall, and there was some substantial flooding because of that storm. So it's important to be prepared regardless of the type of system that is likely to impact us. Storm surge is the sudden push of water on shore, and is actually the most dangerous part of the storm. That's where most of the danger comes from, most of the damage comes from. If you remember Hurricane Michael a few years ago up along the Panhandle, a lot of that damage in places like Mexico Beach, that was actually from the storm surge, that push of water that's coming on shore very, very fast. One thing to remember with any type of flooding, it is very important that we don't try to transverse it. We don't drive through it. You just don't know what's underneath that type of water. So it's important to turn around, don't drown. So Palm Beach County has 4 approaches that we would like you to take to be ready for the hurricane season. I want you to make a plan, build a kit, get involved, and be informed. First step was that making a plan. I want you to know your own hazards. Know the hazards around your home. How is your roof or your windows okay? How is your community? Do you have retention ponds that are likely to flood? How about debris that might be on the side of the roads from our the lawn people that come by and they cut our grass, trim our trees, and they'll leave that stuff on the middle of the road for the next folks to come through. A lot of that could be dangerous if it gets picked up in the wind. I want you to know your zone, such as, do you live in a hurricane evacuation zone or a flood zone? And there is a difference between the two. For more information on that, I would encourage you to look at our website, www.readypbc.com, and you can actually find out which of the 2 zones you may or may not live in. And finally, have a communications plan. I heard somebody mention at the beginning of the meeting about how are we going to communicate with our neighbors and everything. That's very, very important. But it's also important to remember, how are we going to communicate with our family and our friends, and especially family and friends that are outside of Florida that are going to worry about us. So make sure you have a communication plan in place. Make sure that you practice it often. Our next step was building a kit. Excuse me, I'm going to leave this slide up for just a couple of seconds so that you can get an idea of what kind of things you should have in your kit. But I want to point out a couple of important ones. Canned goods. If you're going to have canned goods, please make sure you put a can opener in your kit. Of course, battery-powered radios, flashlight, extra batteries, books and board games, especially for the kids. When we don't have power, we don't have television, we don't have anything to keep them occupied, children tend to not understand what's going on. They're going to get very, very anxious, nervous, and, we need to have them having something to do. Having toys and board games, especially for them, is going to be fantastic. I want to back up, though, to the third one on the list, prescription and over-the-counter medications. Of course, you should grab your over-the-counter medications, Tylenol, Motrin, things like that. But are you aware of Florida Statute 252.358? What this statute says is, under a couple of certain conditions, such as a hurricane warning has to be in place, and the governor has to not only sign a declaration of emergency for Palm Beach County, but he also has to include this statute in that declaration. You can actually go back to your pharmacy, get another 30-day refill of any prescriptions, even if you just did it yesterday. It's much more important that you have prescription medication on hand instead of worrying about it after the fact. And then lastly, having cash. Make sure that you have cash, preferably in small bills, on hand, as banks and stores may not be able to take ATM cards or credit cards to get you supplies that you need. Stores and gas stations are going to open, especially if they have generators, but they may not be able to handle the cash. So make sure that you have some of that as well. If you do need to go to a shelter, make sure that you take extra pillows, blankets, extra clothing for at least 3 to 5 days. Next, we will talk about is getting involved. Again, I said at the beginning of the meeting, we really depend on you in the community to help Palm Beach County get back to normalcy. An involved community truly is a resilient community. Helping our neighbors. We can help our neighbors by preparing. That plywood's pretty heavy when you're trying to put it up on windows. Some of those shutters can be super heavy too. Can we help our neighbors putting up shutters? Maybe go into the store and helping everybody load up on water and other supplies that you need. Does anybody need to evacuate, especially if they have medical needs and need to go to our special needs shelter? We do offer that special needs shelter for those with medical conditions, certain medical conditions. But it is important that you pre-register for that shelter program. And you can register again at our website, readypbc.com. And of course, we want to help our neighbors after the storm, help with getting those shutters taken down. It is required that they come down as soon as possible. It's a safety factor. If the fire department, for example, needs to gain entry into your house, they're not going to be able to get through the shutters and everything. So we want to get those down. Let's help our neighbors. Checking on them after the storm could also mean, hey, are you okay? Do you have enough supplies to get by? And lastly, our last step was being informed. We'd like you to think about signing up for Alert PBC, listen to your local media, downloading our DART app, and following us on social media. So Alert PBC is our notification system. It's our version of an emergency notification system. You can sign up. You have to sign up to get these alerts, but you can sign up to receive phone calls, text messages, and or emails. It's up to you. You can also choose to receive what type of alerts you want. For example, I have mine set up for severe weather, police activity, and road closures. I have it set up for multiple locations to include my work, my wife's work, our home, my stepson's school, and my parents' location. With having elderly parents that don't always listen to the TV or listen when their phone goes off, it helps me help them when I see that there's something that might be happening in their neighborhood, and I can call them and tell them to take action. And you can also choose what time of day you choose to receive those alerts. Signing up is very, very easy. Simply go to alertpbc.com. It's free to sign up, and all of the information that you sign up with, your personal information, is absolutely 100% confidential. We would never give that information out. Your safety is much more important than anything else that we possibly think of doing with that. So downloading our DART app, Disaster Awareness and Recovery Tool. This is a fantastic app. It's free for both Android and iPhone applications. It will help you to plan and prepare before an emergency by showing you what type of things you might need to have in your emergency supply kit. So you can pull that phone out when you're at the grocery store and say, oh yeah, I need to get green beans, or I need to get this, or I need to get that. It'll show you where the local shelters are if you need to go to a shelter. It'll also tell you if you live in one of the two zones that I mentioned earlier. After the storm passes, it will tell you what your local gas station, the nearest gas station and stores are. But with that, I would highly encourage you to call them ahead of time just to make sure that they are open. And you can also report damage back to the Emergency Operations Center so that we know where we need to focus our attention. And that is another great way that you as the community can help us get back to that normalcy. Finally, follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I'm going to leave this up for just a couple of minutes so that you can see our different handles. I love putting good information out on social media that will help you be prepared for the future. And of course, our website is always available at www.readypbc.com. And incidentally, on that website, you can download our Hurricane Preparedness Guide. It's in a PDF file. It's available in English, Spanish, and Creole. You can download it, you can print it, you can give it to whomever you want. It is a free resource that we at Palm Beach County provide to our community to make sure that you are always prepared. It's chock full of information, such as the supply list that I showed earlier, such as how to be prepared, what to expect at shelters, and just a plethora of other information. I'm going to leave this slide up for just a second, just in case anybody has any questions. They'd like to either email me or call me. And of course, I'm going to be on for a little bit after the panel if there's any other questions. But that's the end of my my brief presentation.
Well, thank you, Michael. And I should have mentioned it. I apologize. But all of the presentations being given today, we already have advanced copies of them. So they'll be put up on our website. Camille will get that done. Or if anybody needs it because you've got a special meeting coming up in the next day or two, just let us know and we'll send it to you. Any questions for Michael? Okay. We got that one down. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Very comprehensive, very informative.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Our next presenter, Steve Stepp from Palm Beach Gardens, and David Reyes, I believe, are there with Ron Ferris. So Stephen, it's all yours.
No, go ahead, David. Hi, so this is David Reyes. How are you?
Okay, David, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. With me is my city manager, Mr. Ron Ferris, and Deputy City Manager Steve. So I'm gonna, if you give me 1 second, I'm going to share my screen with you. And can everybody see that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sal?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, we're good.
So I'm just going to provide everybody with an update on where the city is on our pre-storm activities. And then at the end, I'm going to be sharing a new campaign that we're rolling out to reach out to all of our residents. So as of today, all of our communication protocols, both internal, external, are already in place. Our emergency response contracts and resources are ready. Our fuel delivery contracts are in place. In fact, as our policy that during hurricane season, we keep all of our vehicles and our tanks. Our vehicles cannot be less than half tank at any given point, and our fuel tanks are 3/4. So that's part of our policy during storm season. All of our operating procedures already have been reviewed and updated. Our critical infrastructure system, when we say that, we talk about all of our canals, stormwater system, generators, anything that is a critical piece of equipment that we need immediately after the storm. Those are tested and ready to go in case we need to be activated quickly. And our disaster debris management sites are already being approved through FDEP. So if we need to activate them, we could open those sites right away. We don't need to wait. We'll also continue to work closely with our utility partners to continue to work with them, and also in order to ensure fast restoration of services. The city has an agreement with Seacoast Utilities and Northern Palm Beach County Improvement Districts. So we provide them with the same radio communication that we use here in the city. This allows us to assist with restoration of water and sewer related services, or work together with Northern in any drainage related issues and debris clearing on gated communities. So I'm going to share with you an overview of how all of the resources are distributed throughout the city, how our plan works. So the city has established 6 emergency response teams. These are located at 5 of our fire stations, and another team that's located in our golf course clubhouse. This team is designed to service the Western community with all the same resources that you're going to find in all the other fire stations. The teams are comprised of fire, police, public works, leisure services, and building inspectors. Each of this team has all these resources. Each team is designed and capable to operate fully independently from each other and from the EOC. And this is designed this way. So if we were to lose complete communication, we still have the ability to go out and start clearing the road and ensure that we can reach out to every one of our city residents, regardless of the situation in the storm. Also, together with this team is our rapid response team, which are part of the task force and comprised of building inspectors who are deployed immediately after the storm to do damage assessment for both residential and commercial properties. And this happens immediately after the storm. In addition to these teams, we have our Burns Road Community Center. This is our employee family safe area. And we also house other additional resources like facility repair team to repair our buildings, and law enforcement and fire personnel. We also have our operations center and our EOC, which we'll talk further in this presentation. So I'm going to go over a little depiction of how this whole system works together. So all the emergencies are handled by a task force, by each of these teams, and they respond together. So all the resources are working together. So for example, in the case of a fire structure, right after a storm, and there's a lot of damages, then all that respond together. So our public works team could be right in front, removing any debris to allow access for fire and emergency vehicles to reach out and avoid any delays in response and mitigation. This is our picture of our Emergency Operations Center. This is a Category 5 building. This is our situation room. From here, we manage everything that's got to do with the storm before, during, and after. It's centrally located for receiving and disseminating information. And we could coordinate from here all the local, state, and federal resources that are needed after the storm. This is a picture of our Operations Center, which is also a Category 5 building. This building serves as the dispatch center for all of the debris removal operation. And it also houses additional resources, such as an additional debris removal team. In addition to the 6 that we already have, we have another team in here. We also have a stormwater and infrastructure team, has all of the equipment to deal with anything that has to do with flooding or water or canal system. But if it's a dry storm, they have all the equipment necessary to become another debris team. So technically we have 8 teams that could be deployed if needed. We'll have our facility repair teams and law enforcement. Also, this building is a storage facility for all of our critical equipment, which you see some of those equipment shown here in those pictures. It is our repair center for all fleet. In addition to the boots on the ground, the city now uses drone technology. We have 2 of these units, one operated by our police department, the other one by fire department. Immediately after the storm, they are deployed. And this gives us an area view of the city and help us better manage what are those areas that need more resources, so we could start sending those resources and additional help to those areas. We don't have to wait for the teams to report back to us. We'll have that information immediately at our EOC. Our high-risk response team, most agencies shut down operations after 45 mile-an-hour sustained winds. That's because due to safety reasons. So from this point, any emergencies will go on a waiting list to be treated after the winds die down. Instead, the TK4 unit allows highly trained teams to go out in the height of the storm and perform rescue operation. The unit is capable to be operated on the real high winds situations, go out during the middle of the storm and pull to a home and treat a patient in case of an emergency. The team for this unit includes 6 SWAT officers, 2 fire medics, which are also SWAT certified, a supervisor, and we put all kinds of medical equipment, stretchers, and all the medical supplies that are needed to attend any type of emergency. This is a picture of our hurricane guide. So I encourage everybody to go into our website. This has all the information like it was previously shared in the previous presentation. And here you're going to find all the information you need to be prepared before, during, and after a storm. It's available on our website. Feel free to download it, print it, give it out to your communities, and anything that you need to do, this is available to you. Now, if you allow me a few more seconds, I want to share with you a campaign that we are getting ready to roll out to our residents. And basically, this just is going to give you a preview of everything that I just shared with you in my presentation and an opportunity to meet those first responders that are here ready to respond to our communities.
Are you? We're so ready. Are you? We're storm ready. Are you? We're storm ready. Are you? We're storm ready. We're storm ready. Are you?
And that concludes my presentation. Sam, back to
Yeah,
you.
very nice, David. Thank you very, very much. It's obvious that so far Palm Beach County and Palm Beach Gardens are well prepared and ready to help us citizens. Obviously, God forbid if we need that kind of emergency service. So my hats off to you. I would suggest you take that movie clip and put it in the movie theater, before the main event starts, because they're all looking at drinking Coca-Cola or Pepsis or whatever. Maybe this one might be more informative, could help them somewhat. So thank you very much. I know that Steve and David and Ron, over the last couple of years, your team and David Dinnan from Mirasol and myself, we spent quite a bit of time together working on that. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said you mailed out 50,000 of those hurricane prepared guidelines to the residents of Palm Beach Gardens.
We sent those out to every resident in the city, and we have more available should they need them. All they have to do is ask, and they can stop by and get them, or if need be, we'll deliver. I know recently we sent some to David Dinnan for his community, so they're available.
Great. And I still have Palm Beach County EOC documents if anybody is interested in getting that glossy material. And it's very, very confidence building to obviously see how comprehensive you build your plan. So we thank you very, very much. I'm going to hold some questions till the end. I want to get through West Palm Beach, and we have Demo Villalobos. Where's Demo?
Yes, sir, right here.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha. So your show for 15 minutes.
Screen on. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we got it.
And you can hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Sal. Thank you for the opportunity to come today so I can give you my presentation of the hurricane preparedness slideshow that I have for you. My name is Demo Villalobos. I am a lieutenant with the West Palm Beach Fire Department. I'm assigned to the Emergency Management Division. I work here with Assistant Chief Bloomfield and Assistant Chief Mooney. It started first by, I picked 3 hurricanes to present to you because I think there are some valuable lessons that can be learned from these videos. Sal, if I heard you correctly, I think you said that 50% from your survey that you put out have not experienced a hurricane. Is that correct?
That's correct. They've never been through one.
Okay, so the first hurricane I have up here is Hurricane Katrina, and the reason why I chose this hurricane because there are some valuable lessons that were learned. The public officials did put out an evacuation notice for those residents, and a lot of the residents did heed that warning and left. However, some of them did not, and if you guys were adults back in 2005, I'm sure you can remember the images from the tremendous amount of flooding that occurred in that area. And the survey showed that 57% of the people that were surveyed, they didn't leave that area because they just underestimated the storm. They thought that it went from a category 5 down to a 4, and then down to a category 3, and they just didn't think that there was going to be nothing of it. 40% of the residents that stayed felt that they've weathered storms before and they were just very complacent and they decided to stay. So the lesson here is to heed the public officials' warnings when they tell you to evacuate the areas. And I'm going to be covering these zones a little bit more in depth. I know Michael touched on them a little bit. The second hurricane I have listed here is Hurricane Harvey. And the reason I selected this one, because the lesson here is that a hurricane can go from a tropical storm up to a category 4 in 2 days. That's how quickly this storm escalated. And if you remember, Harvey parked itself right on the east coast of Texas there, and it dumped a lot of water. So hurricanes are very unpredictable. So having a plan and being prepared is very important. And this most recent hurricane is Hurricane Michael. Michael started in the southwest region of the Caribbean. It trekked north track up to the Panhandle, and it went from a tropical depression to a category 5 hurricane in 4 days, which is one of 4 category 5 hurricanes that have struck the United States. So and prepared is very important. These are the associated risks with hurricanes. Just like my partner spoke about earlier, storm surge is one of the deadliest risk factors when it comes to hurricanes. Flooding with the tremendous amount of rain, the storm drains get backed up, the wind, rip currents, and tornadoes. All of those just by themselves are very dangerous, but in combination with all 5, so my question to you, to everyone there, is do you have a plan? If you have a plan, you're going to increase your chances of having the best outcome possible if we encounter a storm here in our area. So these are the items that you should include in your plan. You should know the evacuation zones and the flood zones. Know where your shelter locations are in case you have to evacuate. Have your emergency supply kits ready, and have the ability to stay. I know Sal talked about it earlier before everyone came on. He was talking about transistor radios, which would be a great idea. So evacuation zones, you can know those on our website, WPP.org. You can also find them on the Palm Beach County's website. And, it's important to know, because if public officials tell you that your zone needs to evacuate, we want you to heed that warning. All of these zones are really geographical locations except for Zone A, and that's why I have it listed here as an example. Zone A is more of a criteria. So these 3 criteria that are listed here, if you live in a manufactured home, if you live in a home that's substandard construction, or if your home is located in an area that's prone to severe flooding, if they tell you you need to evacuate and you're in Zone A, you meet those criteria, we would ask you to please evacuate. So if an evacuation order is given, I want you to have a plan on where to go. Try to stay with your family, friends, maybe a co-worker, maybe a hotel or motel, that you can get into an area that's going to be safe for you to weather the storm. Palm Beach County does run the shelters here in our county. You can locate the nearest shelter here in West Palm. Forest Hill High School is the shelter we have in our city. What's important to know about shelters is that if you have individuals that are special needs, you have to pre-register those individuals ahead of time. Those folks at Palm Beach County want to be able to prepare for the amount of people that are going to be coming to their shelters that require special needs, and you're going to have to pre-register early. Same thing for those of you that have pets. They do have pet-friendly shelter, and you have to prepare ahead of time for those folks there. So your emergency supply kits. Everyone should have an emergency supply kit. Our season starts June 1st and it goes to November 30th. We recommend that you start getting those supply kits ready before June 1st. So if you haven't done it yet, please go out as soon as you can and grab these supplies. You're going to have to expect the power and water outages during the hurricane. We recommend that you have enough supplies to last each person in your family for at least 72 hours. 5 days would be optimal. These are some of the essential items. Water, we recommend 1 gallon of water per person per day. Of course, your non-perishable food, your medication, Mr. Jakowski spoke about in depth. Having personal items. We know with COVID how quickly toilet paper was depleted from the stores. So make sure you get your supplies now and have them ready and stored in your house, and try not to dig into them if they're in there. There is a comprehensive list. You can access this list through our website. It is up on the Palm Beach County's website as well. There is a comprehensive list of supplies that would be great if you would be able to get all these supplies. So again, staying informed is key. Having listening to the television or radio, social media. I know Mr. Jankowski spoke about alert Palm Beach County notifications, which is a great way to stay informed. And also the Palm Beach County DART application. On that app that you can download onto your phone, it has all of the stuff that I'm speaking to you about today. So you can use that app to stay informed. And these are some of the things that we recommend that you do not do during a storm. Please do not go outside, even if it seems safe to do so. Please listen to the public officials and wait for them to give you the all clear to go outside. Do not open the doors. The pressure changes can cause damage. They can rip the doors right out of your hands, and then you have an open access for the wind and rain to get inside your house. Something to be aware of is that the emergency services will not be available to you once winds reach 45 miles per hour sustained winds, not gusts. Here at the EOC, we work to put weather stations on all of our stations, and we have the associated technology to be able to see what the wind speeds are at the different stations, so that we can make sure we monitor that and monitor responses. It's not to say that we will not, it's not a definite, depending on situations, we will put you, in an order of a queue to respond, but just want you to be aware of that. If you stay, make sure you have a safe room inside your house. Something interior, away from windows and doors would be preferable. After a storm, do not go outside until it's safe to do so. Again, listen to the public officials before you go outside. Do not go and get in your vehicle and start driving to do an assessment. This is going to impede the emergency operations that's going to take place. We start our recovery right away. We go out and we start doing assessments, and our public works department, our fire department, our public safety department work on clearing the roadways. Do not go for a walk, with the strong winds that knocks power lines down. Those power lines can still be energized. They can be draped over a fence. You touch a fence and you can injure yourself, or even worse. Again, be prepared to be without power and water for a long period. These are some of the resources, websites that you can go to get more information. The first one is our website here in the city of West Palm Beach. The second one is the Palm Beach County's website, where you can get a lot of information there as well. There's the FEMA website, and then the Florida Department of Emergency Management website is on the bottom there. Florida Disaster Doctor. This is my contact information, my email address, my cell phone, and my office number. If any of you ever have any questions, please reach out to me. I will be more than happy to accommodate or help whatever needs you may have. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Demo. I've got a couple of questions, and whoever wants to speak up from one of the EOCs, that's fine. North Lake Boulevard goes east and west and goes through the county, goes through Palm Beach Gardens, goes through West Palm Beach. I'm assuming there's some interoperability between your servicing the geographies. So as a citizen, how does that work with regards to who responds to what? When you got, let's just say something, I'm just going to pick Ibis for the only purposes I live here. And to our immediate left, we've got, and across the street, we've got Palm Beach Gardens. And then when we go to the right, east, we got West Palm Beach, and then it picks up again to be Palm Beach Gardens. So if there's some emergency, how do we work from an interoperability teamwork point of view?
Well, the way that works is you have your fire station there. For your example, you have Station 8 that would respond. If they're not on a call, we do have mutual aid agreements with Palm Beach Gardens as well as Palm Beach County. And then they will send the next closest unit, depending on the call type, to assist whoever called 911.
Anybody want to add anything?
Let
David?
me, I'd like to jump in on that as well. I work with 911, so I can kind of pick up where he just left off. So when you call 911, especially if you're calling from a home phone, the equipment within 911 automatically knows the location and phone number that you're calling from. And it automatically determines what jurisdiction somebody lives in. So when you dial 911, it automatically knows if you live in Palm Beach Gardens or in West Palm Beach or in unincorporated Palm Beach County, which for law enforcement would be PBSO. Generally speaking, the same thing will happen with the cell phone. Once they go into, and I won't get into the technological aspects of it, but once a cell phone does what it does, it will also notify the proper jurisdiction that you live in as well.
Sal, just to also add, when it comes to accessibility of North Lake, our teams, the debris teams that we have stationed out west, their responsibility to start with those communities are within the Palm Beach Gardens boundaries. And then as they complete those communities and open the road for access so emergency vehicles can go through it, then we will come down North Lake Boulevard in and outside the city. We will do the entire North Lake Boulevard to connect to Fire Station 3. So then North Lake Boulevard will have access for emergency vehicles.
And we also continue the closest responder responsibility with West Palm Beach and Palm Beach County. So the closest unit will respond.
Great. Well, thank you.
Do most of the people, the responders, are there many EMT people on the vehicles that are responding?
For the city of West Palm Beach, we do have, you're going to have paramedics and EMTs responding. All of our units are ALS units, which means advanced effort. So you are going to have, in most rescues, you're going to have at least 2 paramedics and 1 EMT, or you can have 3 paramedics. But at minimum, you would have 2 paramedics responding and an EMT.
Are these paramedics assigned or are they volunteers? How do they get to you if the facilities and the roads are blocked and there's flooding and this sort of thing? How do they get to their units?
Yes, ma'am. So all of our units, all of our engines have chainsaws, and we also have a technical rescue team. We also have the hazmat team that can help in clearing the roadways so they can to people in need.
Demo, I think she was asking, in the case I know of Station 8 in West Palm Beach, you have a full-time crew there at the West Palm Beach Station 8, but during a Cat 5, I think you're going to come over to Ibis to be sheltered there and then go back to the station if it's called out. So, and I think Steve, you told me, Mr. Stepp or Dave Reyes, that your crews are all fully functional by fire station as well too. You're there. You're not visiting from home.
Yes, and for the golf course, we also have fire medic units and ambulance in that building. So we will have those additional resources in there together with our debris team, so they will work together. So if there's any issues by accessibility, our debris teams are going to be on site to be able to start removing the debris.
Sal, I would just add that virtually all of our firefighters are also paramedics.
Right. I think we've got a very good team, Rita, in between Palm Beach Gardens, the county, and West Palm Beach. God forbid we get one of these severe situations where we get massive injuries. I'm not concerned with their preparedness. I'm concerned with the individual residents' preparedness more than anything else, very honestly, because a lot of people don't take it seriously. I know one of our later speakers, Rick Morrell, who's very versed in it because his company helped out there in the Bahamas when Dorian hit there. Without his company, the Bahamas might have disappeared. But, you know, some of these storms are of a severe nature that if we get a Dorian Cat 5, you know, we have really big problems, really big problems. Okay, I got one other question for you. When some of these hurricanes hit, we get these evacuation orders. Now, we're about 20 miles from the ocean. We don't expect the ocean to come in 20 miles. The problem is when the alerts come down for evacuation, people panic and they get on 95 or the turnpike, and it takes them 8 hours to get to Orlando. You know, we need to get the state to be a little bit more eloquent with regards to who should evacuate. Coastal communities, you live within a mile of the coast, I can see maybe a need to evacuate. You're talking to somebody, by the way, I lost everything I owned in 1965 in Hurricane Betsy. I lived in Miami off of Brickell Avenue. So I know what it means to lose everything. But I'm out here at Ibis, 19 miles from the ocean. I'm not evacuating, you know, because of flooding from that perspective. I might have rain issues and local flooding issues in that respect. But can you get some clarity on who should evacuate?
So that's a very good question. And that's actually one of the things that I discuss when I do my presentation on the longer version. And let me kind of get into that now. So we have two different catchphrases, if you will, at DEM. First is we want people to run from the water and hide from the wind. Essentially what that means is exactly what it sounds like. As you said, we know that there's people that live in those evacuation zones, like, for example, along the coast, the Barrier Islands, Manalapan, Hypoluxo Island, town of Palm Beach, places like that. They're the ones that when we say it's time to evacuate, that we want them to evacuate. Most structures in Palm Beach County are now built to such a good standard that they will withstand the heavier winds of a hurricane. And that's why we say hide from the wind. We would, you know, we prefer people to shelter in place. But if somebody does prefer that, they say, you know what, I want to evacuate. That brings us to our second catchphrase. We encourage people to evacuate miles, not hundreds of miles. You mentioned traffic jams on 95 and the turnpike. And that's exactly what we saw happen during Hurricane Irma. When Irma was approaching, it was anticipated it was going to be a major Category 4, Category 5 storm. And a lot of people decided they were going to get out of Palm Beach County. They went north to Orlando or Georgia, or went west to the Gulf. Well, what ended up happening was the storm moved as well. And everybody did get stuck in traffic, and people ran out of gas or ran out of supplies, excuse me, and ended up getting stuck. So that's why we say, if you're going to evacuate, think about going somewhere that you can shelter, such as a friend's house, a hotel, a church, if some churches decide that they're going to open, or one of our hurricane evacuation shelters that are near you. And again, you can find that list online. So those are the two big areas that when we say, you know, it's time to evacuate, we really would ask people to, you know, listen to what evacuation zone we're asking to evacuate. You know, if we're saying zone A, you know, or zone B, for example, that doesn't necessarily mean that C and D needs to think about leaving yet until we tell you that it's time. But again, for safety, I'm not going to say don't leave. If you feel that you need to evacuate to somewhere safer, by all means. But just think about where you're going to evacuate. And that brings up a good point also of having a plan of where are you going to go and how are you going to get there. Those are the two big factors that are going to determine how fast you're going to get to where you want to go as well. Does that make sense, Sal?
Yes. I mean, I have heard that the stated policy in Palm Beach County is when in doubt, do not evacuate, stay in your home. You're safer in your home and hunker down in that way if you've got all the supplies and provisions that you need, rather than exposing you to either congestion on the roads or something that you don't know where
Sure.
you finally land in, you know.
Sure,
All right,
because
I want to move along just to kind of stay, because we're going to be pressed a little bit for time here. The next gentleman that's going to speak, I'm proud to say I met him at the Chamber of Commerce, North Palm Beach Chamber of Commerce. He was on the foundation, and his company, and he's going to tell you probably a little bit about it, really stepped up to the plate and helped out many of the residents in the Bahamas and what happened as a result of Dorian. And he and I have made joint presentations at Chambers, and David and I made joint presentations at some of the communities. You know, what do you do after the storm? It's called resiliency. How do you get back the pharmacies? How do you get back the gasoline stations? How do you get back, public safety and services that you're relying on routinely? But you got a catastrophic event that just happened, and roadways are blocked, and power lines are down, and you're without the services that you traditionally take for granted. So Rick Morrell, former CEO, great guy, really kind of chipped in here with his company, has been studying this project of resiliency for quite some time. So Rick, you got 15 minutes. They're all yours.
You got it. Thank you very much. And look, I really appreciate everybody's time and the opportunity to speak to you. My big issue is community resilience. And I really appreciated the Palm Beach Gardens video. I thought it was excellent. Are you ready, storm ready? And that is really the question for our community. So Camille, could you put up my first slide, please?
You got it.
So for all of us, the incumbency upon each of us is to really help our community become resilient. For me, resiliency is the speed with which you could get back to normalcy. Next slide, please. It's the measured capacity to return to a life of near normalcy following a disaster. And to accomplish resilience, you need to define your critical infrastructure. So if you're at home, if you haven't defined toilet paper as a critical infrastructure, you've made a big mistake. So there are many things that we all rely on, and measuring that is extremely important for the private sector. It's important to know the supply chain capabilities to your pharmacies, to your gas stations, and to ask the question, if every one of us that are in our community will turn to our suppliers that we buy from, our pharmacy, our gas station, our supermarkets, wherever it is we go and spend our money, and say, are you storm ready? Do you have a generator? How long can you function for if we lose power? Because in Puerto Rico, believe me, it's no different than Palm Beach. If we were hit with Maria here, there would be many of us that would be without power, not for a day, not for a week, not for 3 weeks, not for 2 months, but maybe for 4 to 5 months. And you can just take it from me. I've watched this through the Caribbean and through the US for the last 35 years. And I've gone through all the storms that the Caribbean can throw at us over the last 35 years. And that's what brought me to this issue. Next slide, please. So really it's, having enough food, having enough medications, having cash and payment methods, because nothing is going to work in the way of electronic communication when we get a Cat 4 or a Cat 5. Resilience matters. And if you're not asking the people that you go and buy your supplies from how well they're prepared, trust me, you will not be prepared. The ability to get your pharmacy to be prepared for you, and I've asked my pharmacy, and I have actually, my wife and I have moved to another pharmacy because the one we have didn't even understand the questions that I was asking, even at the corporate level. Next slide, please. So really the call to action here is for all of us to press our suppliers and the people we do business with for their degree of resilience. And let me just give you an example. If our community has 50 banking outlets and only 10 have power for 7 to 14 days of operation, then we've got a community banking resilience of 20%. And my question for the, for the public sector with us and for the private sector is, what should it be? What should we expect from our community services and our private sector? Is 20% good enough? I don't think so. Should in 5 years we have 50% resilience built into our banking community? I think that would be a good thing. So Community with a culture of preparedness and resilience is a community that will come back quickly after a storm. Next slide, please. So that's going to take teamwork, commitment, and execution, and engagement by every individual. Wives and husbands are not immune from playing a role in the teamwork to help our public sector, who are very well prepared, to help the private sector become resilient. And you've got to ask the questions, and that's my big message for today, is ask the questions of the people you buy from, because by doing that, we will get much better resilience in the community private sector that serves our everyday needs. And hopefully we can build 3- and 5-year goals to improve that resilience that we've got throughout our community. Next slide, please. So, you know, these poor penguins sitting out there on the ice are pretty resilient. The questions that I've got for all of us are: priority one, the most important thing is your family and the employees. If you're running a business, your employees and the family of your employees. Through my tenure of running tropical shipping for the last 30 plus years, the most important thing to me was the family of our employees. We rated that as our #1 critical infrastructure, the family of our employees. After that, it was our employees. And then after that was our customers. So the well-being of the family depends on the infrastructure that you provide around them. It's important to define the critical infrastructure. Remember to put toilet paper on your list and be able to flush. When we went through Wilma, I remember not being able to flush at our house for about 2 to 2.5 weeks. Resiliency must be measured in the private sector, and the priority is to set measured goals going forward. If you're in a condo community, set some measured goals to improve your resilience over the next 3 to 5 years. Next slide, please. So we can build resilience together. Everyone plays a part, both individually. Define the critical infrastructure that's important to you and your family, and be certain to have some goals on how to improve that over the next 2, 3, and 5 years. All businesses need to share what they're doing with their municipality. And the municipality, obviously you've seen the video earlier today from Palm Beach Gardens, but the municipalities also are sharing their critical infrastructure and what they're doing to improve their resilience with the community. And you've seen some of that in this presentation today. Last slide. Private sector and chambers, we're working at the North Palm Beach Chamber to improve the resilience of the building suppliers, food stores, communication providers, power, sewer, water, transportation, and logistics, which everybody seems to forget. Banks, hotels, financial services, and hospitals and nursing homes. These are all critical. And the results of our efforts at the North Palm Beach Chamber will be shared with the townships that we have as we go through this over the next few months. Next slide, please. Remember, your food gets to you if through the supermarkets and your food stores. If we had 20 major food outlets and only one has self-power, we will have chaos. So getting every food store that you do business with to have their own generator power with adequate supplies of fuel is critical. Ask the managers when you go in, ask. That's every one of us. If you're in the public sector, you've got a family too. When you go out and buy something from somebody, ask what they're doing to improve their ability to function without power for a long time in the event of a storm. Remember, a community with cultural preparedness is a resilient community. Next slide, please. We're only as strong as the weakest link in our chain. I urge everybody to work together to build a community of culture of preparedness. We are trying hard to ready our communities for a catastrophic disaster, which happened only 100 miles away from us when Dorian hit Grand Bahama and the Abacos. Metrics matter. Measuring how well you are structured today with your critical infrastructure is important. And then making sure that what we do privately links in with what the county and the state EEOC has with regards to both measurement and preparedness is most important. Last slide, please. So call to action, we need to continue to work together. We need to build our continuity plans personally, business-wise, as well as obviously in the public sector. When you shop, I just want to restate this, which I've said since the beginning, ask if they've got backup power, if it's a critical piece of your supply chain of food or medicines or whatever, gasoline, does your gas station have power? Can it run off the fuel in its tanks? And we hope that by the time we get to 6/30/22, we can have a really resilient community here with a good understanding of our critical infrastructure coverage for any catastrophic event. The key to building real resilience is measuring and knowing what you have and how well the people you do business with are prepared to supply you with your needs. The life you save may be your very own. So the key to saving your own life is the effort that you put in now. That's what I've learned over the last 35 years of doing this. So I think that's the final slide.
Okay, Rick, I've got a question for you. I mean, help us help you. I know we sent a letter, we're supportive and so forth, but let's just take pharmacies, whether it's Publix, CVS, Walgreens, Walmarts, maybe you get home deliveries and so forth. What leverage can we bring to the equation? I mean, you got 46,000 residents that are members of the NCNC. We got 22 communities. You know, I think we all recognize the urgency and the need to be prepared, but eventually, obviously, the resiliency factor kicks in after the storm. Is, you know, what leverage can we bring on a CVS if you're leading the charge and you've talked to some of their corporate offices? Are they receptive? Do they want to work with us? I mean, what do you get from feedback from them?
If you're just getting zero, which in the case of, I'm not going to mention the name, but in the case of my pharmacy, there was just a total lack of really any interest, both even at the corporate level. When I spoke to the regional manager, well, I'm moving my business. I'm not going to do business with them. And if every one of us, all 46,000 of your residents, will ask that question and move their business to the appropriate business that has got resilience built in, let me tell you, we've got power as individuals.
All right, well, let me give us all a little to do here, and I'm perfectly willing to roll up my sleeves and help in this respect. Next time you're out shopping, whether it's Publix or your favorite pharmacy or whatever it happens to be, and just ask the question. If you get one of these blank stares back, like, what are you talking about? Or no, you know, we don't worry about that. Or the corporate office, let me know. We can leverage, we can bring in, you know, some representative here at one of our meetings to present what, and I'm not picking on them. I'm just using them as an example, whether CVS or Walgreens or not are prepared from a resiliency point of view. Let's have them present to us as to what they're going to do. Or Publix. I mean, it's Publix or Winn-Dixie and a few other places that people shop for groceries. You know, we have leverage because we have numbers. And I'm not just suggesting we're threatening anybody or scaring anybody. We're just trying to do the smart thing to be ready and to be prepared, obviously, if God forbid, afterwards we have to do something.
Yeah, I think the key questions to ask, do you have generated capability for 7 days? And do you have communication systems that you can work independent of the normal structure of communication? These are the two questions that are critical that all of us, believe it or not, depend on for our lives every day.
Yeah, and I'm not asking you to take the role of safety or elected officials in the various jurisdictions in which we have elected officials, but as average citizens, it's a smart question. Now, you may fall upon deaf ears, but that's okay. I want to know that. And, you know, we'll put together some little matrix that says, well, we got great positive feedback from company Y, but no feedback at all from company X, whatever it happened to be.
But Sal, let me ask a question. I mean, that's not going to get any action. Why don't we develop a survey with the cities and go out to the pharmacies, go out to the food stores and have each of our members that shop there, get it filled out, get it back to us, and then we'll consolidate it.
We'll
and
put something
communicate.
together. Camille will send
Yeah.
something out and you guys just send it back.
Right.
It's not a mandatory. We're just asking you to help out. I think all of us would probably like to work together in that respect. So Camille,
Right.
you write that down as a follow-up to do actionable item.
Excellent suggestion.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, wasn't there a state law passed and some county ordinances about generators?
Yes.
Have
I
they,
wrote the legislation.
right, so have that been implemented?
It was cut down by the oil lobby. It was for gas stations after the
Right.
04, 05 storms.
Yep.
I wrote that legislation, I got it passed, but it was watered down. And it was really watered down to gas stations having access, not in situ, but having access to generators to run their pumps and their store if they were in 1 mile of an evacuation zone. So it was completely changed from what I required in the legislation when I wrote it. I've now joined the organization that basically watered that bill down, and I'm on the executive board. And when it comes up again, I've got a feeling we're going to have it the way I wanted it originally.
My
Well,
question is,
obviously, I'm going to get to Maria Marino in a second, but Rick, we're interested. We'll follow up with it to do. We'll get something out to you if you have the time and you're willing to kind of just take the survey with you and get back to us so we can at least assemble some data and have something to go by. Maria Marino, I think, wanted to say something.
I have a question.
Hang on, Rita. I'm acknowledging Maria. She was waving her hands at us. I don't know if you were asking to making a point, Maria, or you're on mute. You're on mute, Maria.
Sorry, I did want to make a point, and the ideas of generators did come in front of us, and we are changing our code. The size of the gas station might dictate whether it's an actual generator on site or if they have to have a hookup. And those are important things going forward, but that's something we're doing as a county, and I know the municipalities could probably do it themselves too, and it would be a requirement for new development. You can't go back, you can't retrofit people, but for new development, these may be requirements that the municipalities can do. And as I said, depending on the size of the station, the amount of pumps, you either have to have a generator or you have to have a hookup for a generator.
Okay.
So Rick, is that similar to the to what you were all trying to accomplish previously?
Yes, I was basically, I think it was if the gas station had 12 pumps or more, they would be required to have an in-situ generator able to run off the fuel in their tanks. And also with enough power in that generator to run the store and the transaction machines that run the credit card.
Right.
Because that's the key. And so I applaud the thing going forward. But as I said, it was watered down by the oil lobby at the time. And it just ended up, if you've got 5 generators in a warehouse somewhere and you could truck it to your gas station, if it's within a mile of an evacuation zone, you got to pass. So, but I know that's not going to work if we really have a catastrophic storm hit us.
Okay. Rick,
And I
what
know
we're gonna do
from
is-
a count, I'm sorry, Sal, let me,
Go ahead, Maria. Go ahead, Maria.
from a county perspective, when you look at where gas stations are versus the municipalities, there are definitely more gas stations in the municipalities than the county. So that's why I said this is something that not only can a county do, but the municipalities have to visit that issue also.
Thank you.
Rick, if you don't mind, I hate to give you a to-do, but we'll take a shot at putting together this 2 or 3 question little survey. I'd like to send it to you and put your thoughts on it if you concur with the way we're asking it or what we're asking, so that we get the right answers back as opposed to something else. All right, Camille?
Absolutely.
Put something together. We'll send it to Rick and see what his reaction is to that couple of question survey.
Thank you.
Okay, I got one item. I'm sorry, Rita, I will get to you, but I got an item that came across on chat from Sam Boyd for Michael Englisher. How do we get locations if the cell phones are out? Area numbers. Sam, am I asking the question the right way, or Michael? Are they still on there? Sam, I see you on there. Take yourself off of, you're on there twice. Take yourself off of mute.
He
Did I
doesn't
ask
have
you-
he doesn't have the ability to do that, Sal. That's why he sent me an email.
Okay.
And
Is
it's for Michael.
Okay, how do they get the locations if the cell phones are out?
If it's not a 561 area code or,
So there's a couple of different things here, and there's, I mean, there's a lot of technology behind the cell phones, but provided the cell phone is at least working, we're going to at least get some information through to the 911 center. That's where it's vitally important that when somebody calls 911, that they stay on the line to actually give the operator their address. The other thing is along that line is texting to 911 is also available in Palm Beach County. So in the event that somebody is unable to speak, they can't talk, or for whatever reason, they can still text 911 and give that address. Now, if the cell phone service goes out altogether, that is an issue. Obviously, we don't want to happen. But two things: number one, Palm Beach County's 911 system is very, very robust and has a lot of redundancy built into it. There's actually part of the system here in Palm Beach County, and then there's another part of the system that's outside of Palm Beach County, so that if one side goes down, the other side will pick up. So that's one way that it backs up. And another thing that's a possibility is, and this is where I really recommend that HOAs talk to everybody in the neighborhood and find out, first of all, do you have a CERT team, a community emergency response team in your neighborhood? And if so, does your CERT team have an amateur radio operator? Back during Hurricane Irma, this happened down in Boynton Beach, we had that situation happen. Cell phone service in the southern part of the county went out. So somebody was having chest pains or a heart attack or something, needed to call 911. They obviously couldn't. An amateur radio operator with the CERT team picked up their amateur radio, radioed in to the emergency operations center on the ham radio frequency, and the ham radio operator was able to go upstairs to fire rescue and say, we need help at such and such address. Now, you heard West Palm Beach say that, once winds get up to about that 45-mile-an-hour strength, unfortunately, first responders aren't going to drive. They can't. They're high-profile vehicles, and they can't go out in the high winds. So there's other options that the operators will be able to provide and kind of get you to get you through the emergency. But the key takeaway is, one, if you can text 911. If you can't, call. And when you do, if you do get through to the 911 center, please make sure that you stay on the line and give your address. Does that answer the question okay?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you, Michael. All right, I want to move along. Thank you, Rick, for obviously your time, and Palm Beach Gardens for your time, and West Palm Beach, and all of you. I think you're very confident that you guys are all ready for us. I hope we're ready for you. Okay, from that point of view. All right. One of our mantras is to focus on education of our residents, focus on the issues. We're not a political arm. We don't take the Republican or the Democratic kind of view. We try to get the facts, share it with our delegates, and hopefully our delegates will share the information with their respective boards in their communities, or their residents in their respective communities. And when you look at the statistics from a voting participation point of view, and I think Wendy's going to kind of give support to this, our coalition has been averaging over 65, 70% voter participation rate, which is unbelievable when you compare it to any other county or any other state. The states and the counties are in the low 60s perhaps, but they have anything in the 70s or higher. In the general election last year, we had 86% turnout. So we have people who are very interested in voting, and part of the strategy is, if you educate people, they make a more informed decision, and perhaps they can vote a little more smartly based upon whatever the issue is or the candidate happens to be. All right. Now, another fact is, though, and maybe this is due to demographics, we had a very high percentage of people vote by mail or do early voting. The amount of people that turned out at the poll was less than 20%. So we were kind of in a view of looking at voting by mail repetitively year in and year out. Well, that law has somewhat changed because you're going to have to do some other things to make sure you can do that. So Wendy Satori-Link is our Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections. 15 minutes, so you got them, Wendy. They're all yours. Maybe you can acquaint us with what changed and what we might have to do differently.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. And I know you said you need to get off by 5:30, so I'll try to condense this to 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and just start sharing the screen so that we can jump right into it. Let's see.
Take your time. I'll go 5 minutes extra to make sure you get your message across.
No, that's okay. I'll do, let's see. Unfortunately, I lost my staff member who knows how to do this, so I apologize. I'm trying to.
I can see your slide.
You can?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right,
we got 'em.
All right, so sorry, I'm gonna not look like I'm looking in the camera because I don't know how to bring it over to my, I don't know how to bring it in front of me. So anyway, I apologize for that, but I will, you're right. Your area is a very active area and we're grateful for that because obviously one of the things that we want is get as many people voting as possible. And there are 3 ways to vote and it's going to be yet to be seen whether the pandemic is what really pushed us into such a big early voting, vote by mail, whether it's just because we had the prepaid postage and therefore it was easier. So a lot of things happened at one time. And now, of course, we have a new law that's going to make that a little bit more difficult, although it's not as bad as it could have been. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of go through that with you. So Florida election laws, as you know, are governed by statute. Very much what we do is very ministerial. We don't have a lot of policy decisions that we're able to make. We can really do, most of our decisions are how we're going to implement the laws that are passed by the legislature. And so these are the types of things that we are able to focus on. And I want to make sure, are the slides changing for you?
Yes, they are. You're on
Okay,
2021
great. Okay.
election law changes.
All right, so Senate Bill 90, the big thing that folks are talking about, had a number of changes. One of the things is if you need to change your voter registration, to change the name and party affiliation request, we used to be able to do that pretty easily. Now those have to be on an actual voter registration application. So you can either download it from the website, from the internet, or you can call us and we'll mail you one. But anytime you want to do a name change for marriage or other reasons, or change your party affiliation, we can no longer do that over the phone. Verification requirements also to update your residential address have changed. We're going to need to have more information from you now, including your driver's license or state ID or your last 4 of your social security number. For vote by mail being some of our big changes, if you had an all elections checked, and again, Florida being a state that you have to request your vote by mail, we don't just send them to you. So when you make that request, you have a choice. You can either check for a particular election or elections, or you can put all elections for a period of time. Most people had put all elections for this during this time, during 2020, and so it would have gone through 2024 under the old statute. Now with the new one, that is at least good through 2022. At one point, the earlier bill had everybody wiped out completely, and everybody would have had to re-up under the new laws. But they did decide in the end to grandfather in for at least one, or for the one election cycle. So you have your vote by mail request. If you had it before, it's valid. If you aren't sure, you can go to our website and you can tell that you have a request on file. If you want to continue your vote by mail request after 2022, you now are going to have to make sure that you make that request after the election. So for this election, it'll have to be after November 8th. So if you send it to us on November 7th, it will expire on November 8th. So it expires at that next general election. So you need to push it and you have to make that request after November 8th. And you can do that by calling us. You can do it, and you'll still have to provide appropriate information. You can do it online. Right now, we just have a fillable PDF form because the state has not made the changes that are necessary yet for us to do vote by mail requests online. So for the time being, we've created something to be helpful and just a fillable PDF, but you still have to print that. Hopefully by the time we get into November, though, the state will have changed that and you can make your vote by mail request online. That's actually the best way to do it. or you can send us something in writing, and we do have vote by mail request forms that you can use. The new verification methods, again, are going to be, you have to provide for us your state ID or your Florida driver's license, or the last four of your social security number. And the key is it's whichever we can verify. Now, the way we verify it is by the information you gave us when you applied and did your voter registration application. Most people today, myself included, I don't remember when I did my application, if I used my social security number or if I used my Florida ID. So if you're doing it, over the phone or in person, not such a big deal, because we'll be able to pull up your registration. We'll know which one you gave us and we can ask you that. If, however, you're sending it to us in writing and you're not communicating with us, at that very moment, then we request that you give us both, because otherwise, if you give us the wrong one and we can't verify it by what we have on file, then your vote by mail request is considered incomplete and it just dies. So we don't want that to happen. So we are going to do our best, and this is what we're doing now. For the time being, we have enough money, or we're making enough money in it to reach out to people on it's not that frequent yet. That if that happens, then we send them a letter, or we try to reach out to them to let them know that their vote by mail request is incomplete because we weren't able to verify it with the information they gave us. Once we get out of 2022, though, it's going to be unlikely that we'll have the means to do that. So we really want to encourage people to give us both if they, and we'll only use what we need for verification. The other thing is this new verification requirements, they're going to apply to anybody. If you are requesting a vote by mail ballot on behalf of a family member, you're going to have to give us the same information. One of the other big changes that you're going to notice is we used to, as a matter of convenience, and not every county did this, but we did. We had a checkbox in the bottom right-hand corner of your vote by mail return envelope, because that way you're signing it, and at the time you sign it, you are asking that we continue and extend your vote by mail request. That's no longer permitted. So those check boxes aren't going to be the easy way, as it has been, for people just to continue their vote by mail requests. So you'll notice that. Drop boxes, that was a big change as well. Early in the bill, they changed it to say there would be no drop boxes whatsoever. And the rhetoric was, this is a vote by mail statute. And if you want to vote by mail, you have to put it in the mailbox. Luckily, I was actually co-chair of this committee and this task force to stop that from happening. And we do have drop boxes available again, however, with some more restrictions. So we will have them available during early voting hours at our early voting sites. The vans that we had in addition that were in the parking lots that made it easier for people, particularly in the rain, or if they're in a hurry, or because of the pandemic and we didn't want to have to interact with as many folks, those we will not have anymore. So you will have to go up to the early voting site and go to the drop box inside the early voting site. You won't have to, we are trying to work out a way you won't have to stand in the early voting line. You'll be able to be in a separate line, but you will have to go up to the early voting site to do your drop off if you want to drop it off there. We'll also be able to have it at our 4 office locations, but same is true for early voting. They will have to be manned by our SOE staff. And the penalty for not doing that, for example, if somebody's guarding it or attending it and they leave momentarily to go to the restroom, or they get distracted, turn away from it and step away too far, it is a $25,000 personal fine to me, which is a real problem. That isn't the case anywhere else that we're aware of. And so it's a real shot in the gut to supervisors. We just ran the best elections in a pandemic, and this is how we were repaid with this $25,000 personal fine. So what it's going to do is it's going to cost more money, because we'll have to have, and this is what the state is recommending even, is that we now have 2 people. So now we went from having to have 0 to 2. So we'll have 2 people having to attend those. We used to be able to do this as long as we had the 24/7 video surveillance, which we do. And then during the general, just because it was a little more heated and we were concerned, we did also have during the nighttime when there weren't people around, we had the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department there guarding the sites, but that's no longer permitted either. So we will have some limited hours because it can only be when we can have them manned. Another really important change for you to know is it is a first-degree misdemeanor for a person to possess more than 2 vote-by-mail ballots that are not your own or those of your immediate family members. And that was intended to address the ballot harvesting that some legislators were concerned about. So if you have more than 2 vote-by-mail requests that are not yours or your immediate family members, then that is a first-degree misdemeanor. Changes to third-party voter registration organizations, and there's a little bit more on this on the next slide. I don't know if any of your groups are doing this. This is actually one of the things that's being challenged. There's currently 5 lawsuits that have been filed about Senate Bill 90. We're named in all of them just because we're necessary parties, but we're not really involved in fighting them. That's really being done at the state level. But one of the big ones that the third-party voter registration organizations filed is they don't like these new requirements. One of them being that they not only do you have to share with the voter that they can register online, or that they can drop this in the mail themselves, or that they can take it to the SOE's office, you actually have to go so far as to say, and we can't promise you, or it's possible that we will not turn these in timely. So, you know, the third parties are saying, well, it makes us like have to tell a group that we're incompetent or that we're going to not follow the law. And then there's also changes as to the timing as to when they have to have them in and which county it has to go to the specific county of the voter, and there are different things like that. Also new penalties related to that. And like I say, there's a little bit more on this on the next slide, but changes to no solicitation zones. It had been 100 feet before. In 2020, it was changed to 150. So our folks are already a little bit used to the 150-foot no solicitation zone. Now that also applies to drop boxes. So wherever there is a drop box, our 4 offices being an example, the 150 feet applies also to the drop boxes, and that will affect early voting to the extent that the drop box is not right by the front door. You'll have your 150 feet has to occur from the front door, the back door if there is one, and also from the drop box. So it's just potentially expanding that 150-foot zone. Solicitation is a term that's used that they clarified what they mean by that. And that where that kind of came up is a lot in the news. People were saying whether or not you could provide food and water. And you cannot provide food and water in the 150-foot zone unless you are the SOE. But I can tell you that the SOE, that is not in our budget. So we will not be providing food or water to voters standing in line. Unfortunately, not because we don't want them to drink, but we just don't have the money to do that. So there won't be food and water within that 150-foot zone. And I apologize, this was added on a little bit, combining two slideshows, and I didn't realize until right before that it was jumped around a little bit. One of the other third-party voter registration issues is that it has to be returned to the county in which the applicant resides. Doesn't sound like a big deal. It has to be within that 14 days or before book closing. But if groups are going to college campuses and those students are from various counties and they're still registered in their home county, it's going to be incumbent on that organization not to return it to the county in which they're in, which is what it's been done in the past, but they'll have to divide those out and get those to each of the counties where whoever it is residing. And so they also have to do, they have to tell the applicant these things that I've mentioned. A couple office updates that we just want to let you know. Tracking your ballot, we've been able to do that. It's going to just be more important that people are doing that because there is concern about the US mail still, and we want people to know how they're trying to track their ballot and how they can do that. it also is going to let them know whether or not they have a valid vote by mail request on file. So following the 2022 election, particularly, that's going to be an issue that we want people to know that they can check there. You can also check the early vote time, the early voting location, your wait time. I just want to remind people they can do that. We have the poll worker application form, and we did change our domain. It had been pbcelections.org. It is now votepalmbeach.gov, which is, of course, a more secure site for us. We are going to be doing for the Congressional District 20 an express vote pilot program, and we are the only group in the state that's doing the pilot program. And so for this special election coming up, for early voting, you will vote only on the express votes. And I don't think many of you are in CD20, but if we have anybody else who designs to run, depends on where that comes, it's possible that you would have another site, another election there. But for the express votes is our ADA equipment that is we already own, and so there's no additional cost for that. There are printers that are slightly different, but the company is giving them to us for the pilot program, so there's not going to be any cost to voters for this. It does save us a lot of money. The toner for those and the paper is very expensive, the way we've been doing the ballot on demand. It also takes about 50 seconds, 50, for us to print your ballot when you come to early voting. And if it's a 2-page ballot, this doing it through the express votes will take 3 seconds. So that should help us speed up those lines considerably. It saves room in the precinct, the scanner box. It is a MarkSense ballot. It is not a touchscreen, although it is a touchscreen. It's not tabulating your ballot. It's only marking your ballot. It does have English, Spanish, and Creole on it in both an audio and in visual. It will not allow a voter to overvote. It will only accept if it's a vote for one race, it will only accept one. We did have a lot of people who overvoted in the general election. So those are just a couple of the quick highlights I wanted to get through. I'm sorry I went over. Certainly sign up for our newsletter or email updates if you're interested. And if I can answer any questions, I'm happy to do so.
I got a question here on the chat room from David Moore. Such improvements. So if you vote by mail, whoops, what happened? Hang on. So if you vote by mail in the midterms next year, you can no longer register for the general by checking the box at that time. You must register separately after the election.
Yes, that is true. So you can, after that election, you'll be able to call us to register, again, with the appropriate information that you have to share. You'll be able to call us. You can do it by sending us a form. You can do it by going onto the website. By that point, it'll be available. So you can, and that's the way we recommend. It's the fastest, and it's how we know that there's no errors made because you're doing it yourself.
Wendy, what is the telephone number for the SOE if we were trying to contact you?
Sure, it's 561-656-6200.
Okay, that came in from another individual. The only feedback I would give you, and we all have felt this, in the last several elections, there's been not only the candidate to vote for, but too many amendments. We get 13 amendments, 14 amendments. I mean, candidly, I would say a lot of people don't read the amendments and they're not sure what they're voting for when they look at the amendments. Why can't the legislator get legislation, which I know hands it down to you, you're not responsible for it, but our feedback to you, to them is stop it. It's getting ridiculous. It's getting utterly ridiculous. Let's have a vote for candidates and 1 or 2 amendments and that's it.
Yeah. So, one of the ways things get on the ballot is these petitions. And so groups can file a petition, and if they collect enough petitions, they can get it onto the ballot. So sometimes it's not even a legislative push, but it's groups. And what we find is many of them are not even based in Florida. They're based outside of Florida, as well as they get their funding outside of Florida. But they come in, they send people out, they collect these petitions. People may or may not even know what they're signing to say they can vote on it, but it does get it on the ballot. So, and we do hear a lot of complaints about how long the ballot is because of them.
Okay, any other
unfortunate.
questions for Wendy? Because I know we're running over a little bit, but
Yeah, this is David. I understand that from your presentation, you're adding personnel, you're adding technology. Has your budget increased?
Well, it is. Our budget request is increased. The county commission is not yet voted on the budget. And it's a whole different presentation I could give you, but I'll give you a very quick, we have for this year, we have a number of things that are going on. We have the increase in cost from SB 90. The biggest one being not just the personnel and things you saw, but the changes in the laws that they made that changed a question or two even
Right.
require us to change every single piece of paper we have in the office almost. So the secrecy sleeves that we have, both at the polls as well as what's going in your vote by mail, the vote by mail envelopes, the outgoing and the incoming, because of changes in barcodes and the way we have to do some things that their provisional envelopes, the provisional affirmations, all of that. So we've got truly a million pieces of paper at least that are going to be wasted and recycled, and then we have to do new ones. So we do have a number of costs in addition to personnel that come from that. We also have, this is a year of the census. So once all of the lines are redrawn and people finish fighting over those at the various levels, they're given to us. And then we have to go in, make sure that we have all of the addresses, all the new addresses that are going to get plotted. And so we have about 135,000 addresses yet to plot once we know what the new lines are going to be. Those are new since the last time they came in. And then we have to create new precincts. So we'll be based on the new lines that are drawn. We now have to go through, we create new precincts. We won't have very much time to do it because usually by now we have this information and nobody has it yet. So it's no one's fault except for the pandemic. But once we get those, we'll be on a very accelerated time frame to do the new lines, the new precincts, and then new polling locations. So that, and then everybody will be sent. So we'll have over 1 million voters will get new voter registration cards, as well as we have to get the information out to you about what your new precinct is and where your new voting location is going to be. So that's a sort of once every 10-year thing that happens, and that'll be this year. And then the other thing we have is the memorandum of agreement that we had to sign with the state. That is, the state gave us that at the maybe February of this year, and we have until December to implement it. But because we have this special election, we actually have to have it implemented before we start vote by mail with the special election. So we're going to be doing that very early on in the year. And so that is where we used to be able to be behind the county's IT firewalls and everything. We were very fortunate that Palm Beach County has a very robust and very good cyber practice, as well as, like I say, all the IT. So to get into our area, you would have had to break through the county's firewalls, and then we have our own in addition. The state is no longer allowing that, and most counties had already pulled away from their county. Most supervisors had already pulled away from their counties. We had not, because we were fortunate to have a good relationship with our county's IT department, and we enjoyed the ability to be behind them and have their protections and save taxpayer dollars. We're no longer able to do that. We have to, by law, now switch out of that by the 31st of December. And so we now have to recreate everything that the county provides. We'll now have to provide it ourselves. So our budget has increased, but it's not only SB 90, it's those other reasons as well.
okay. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you for your time. As always, we appreciate your time and doing a great job. So keep it up. Okay.
Thank you.
We pride ourselves on voting up here in North County.
Yeah, we like it.
Who we vote for, I don't care. At least
Well,
we get
Sal,
to vote. That's the main thing.
yeah, get out and vote. And as I mentioned, we are doing these, and we're close to you all because we're in Riviera Beach with our voting equipment center. And we are doing these behind the scenes tours for groups. And the feedback has been phenomenal in terms of how the security works, how it works, what the processes are. They run about 45 minutes. So if your group would be interested, please contact us because we'd love to host you and show you how it's done.
All right. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that. Okay. Moving right along, I just got 3 points to make. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 28th. We traditionally do not hold any meetings in August because of vacations, not only because of our delegates and residents, but the speakers as well are very difficult to coordinate. So we're going to look at September 28th as our next meeting. I got 2 questions for you. If number 1, you would like to be a presenter at one of our meetings to present your community. We've had several, Matt Lambert from Marisol, Steve Logodice from Ibis, Peter Moore from Admiral's Cove, Mark Lowenberg from Calusa had presented. It's a 5-minute, 8-minute presentation. It's a little bit of marketing on your behalf with regards to who you are, what your features are, how many homes, how many residents have you got, any concerns or issues that you may have and so forth, or programs that you're going to plan. So far, all the GMs and CEOs have presented very well, and it's come across very nicely. If you'd like to present at one of our next meetings, we're planning the fall meetings, get to Camille so we can schedule that and put that on the program. On the other hand, let me flip it around. I've had a little feedback from some residents who live in some of our communities that we're not getting the information out to them as residents. It's kind of, we get it out to the delegates. It might get to the board, but then it stops from there. Okay. So that's not good. So if you would like help in presenting to your board, I perfectly raise my hand. I'm willing to come out and help you put a presentation together. We can do something for your board to update them, let them know what we're doing, what the activities are, what we have done and so forth. Because not only do we want to make sure we're giving them information, we want to provide value in that respect. And the only way to get that value out there is to communicate with them. So you let me know what you want, and we will kind of work with you to help you get the information out to your respective, not only board, but residents. Okay, before we adjourn, has anybody got anything really on their mind or on their chest they got to get, out there right now before we call it an adjournment? No? All right. Do I have a motion for adjournment? From Paula Feinstein, your motion is to adjourn. A second? Somebody raise their hands or get off of mute. Second. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys. Talk to you again. Appreciate it. Be safe out there. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Rick.